Chapter 14. Chapter 14. The rabbit is pronounced, life is nothing more than a card game. And no one could understand what he was saying. He had become inebriated from his dark mistress, bourbon, Kentucky bourbon. He had become inebriated from the Kentucky bourbon. But in his inebriated state, he had said something. It was very dramatic. Everybody was wondering what it could mean. And they had to go back and do a replay. They had to have a replay. Just the most importune moment, they had to have a replay. And just the most importune moment, they had to have a replay. But the rabbit, he collected his thoughts and he said, the best you can do is understand that this life we are living is a card game. And they laid down the cards. From the time you were born, they lay down the cards. And there may be a couple good cards, but it's like every deal. It's like the rabbit. He looked up at everybody. He said, it's like every deal. There's good, there's bad. You may get a good hand, or you may get a shitty hand, my friend. It may be that you have a good hand, or perhaps you have been dealt no cards. And so the people who are dealt no cards, somehow they drift eventually into federal and the phenamine. And the phenamine is a drug. It makes you very spastic, like a cocaine, but it's a cheap man's cocaine. It rots the teeth out. It makes lines on the face. It eats off your ears and it rots out your teeth. And you go blind. But it's a pretty good drug because you can make it for 55 cents. 55 cents, you can make a whole batch. It's pretty good. If you can make a whole batch of a very potent drug, it's a very good thing if you have so amphetamine. Amphetamine is a good thing if you're a drug addict and you want to become a skinny person and rot your face out, become a mummified version of your former self and then die at a very young age. And they have amphetamine and they have the ephemeral. It's ephemeral. It's like femerala from Plymouth. Femerala. No one knows what it's called. It's like a pill that they crush and you could take it. It's like a heroin on time of steroids times 50 to the 50th power. It's like a pill you would crush or a powder you would obtain. Ephemeral. You could attain a. But this is what some of them do when they lay the cards down on the table. They say, "I will play my cards." And a few people, they had a couple good cards, and so they were able to see a good example. And so finally the rabbit spoke up. He said, hey, everybody, you have to understand, you have to follow the good example. You might have a superstar mother, father, you might be a blessed, Jesus was given Jehovah. He picked out the parents for Jesus. He had an unofficial insemination, and then he had a foster father, and he had picked them out from the earth, and he found a Mary and a Joseph, and it was a good thing. And so this is what we're trying to do. Maybe you are born to Mary and Joseph, but perhaps you're not. Perhaps you're born to Adam and Eve, the sinners, the original sinners, or perhaps worse. Maybe Jezebel is your mother. Who knows? The rabbi looked at the audience and he said, perhaps Jezebel is your mother. Then you would know. Then you would understand what we're talking about. But, so some of the people, they said, my mother was Jezebel, so I got on the femoral and the fatamirine, and I became a mummified version, a pruned out version, a raisineted version of myself, my former self, and then I died when I was 40. Or I died when I was 36. I died pretty young. I died. Before anything got started too good, I had a few children. I laid my tracks down, but I died. I died on the overdose. I had a little bit of overdose for myself. So whatever. So I had an overdose. The rabbi's like, this is not the way you want to go. You don't want to go for the overdose. You want to go for the underdose. If anytime you have a chance, you should not go for the overdose. You should probably try to go for the underdose. And this rabbi said, these are words you can live by. Sometimes they lay the cards down. There's a fat, slovenly goof bag of a dealer, and he's beating you. He's whipping you. You want to strangle him with his own clip-on bow tie. He has a clip-on bow tie. You want to jab it into his retina because he's housing you. He's crushing you. He's beating you. He's vicious, and you can't beat this fat, slovenly, no-necked bitch. You can't beat him. He's taking all your money. But you calm down. You say, hey, maybe I walk away. Maybe I do the opposite. And then the rabbit, he spoke up to the audience and said, sometimes if you get bad cards, and you're on the ephemeral, the amphetamine, you're picking all the losers, and you don't have no ability to pick no winners, maybe you should just pick the best way you can pick. Just pick, and at the last second change, and go the opposite. Always go the opposite. Trick yourself. Don't try to pick for the opposite, or then you'll get the opposite of the opposite. you want to pick the best you could pick and then bet the opposite. You want to find out with all your heart, choose, and then you probably win 60% of the time, you'll beat the VIG. If you win 60% of the time, you will beat the VIG, and you won't have to mess with the amphetamine or the ephemeral, and you won't have to become a comatose version of a mummified skeleton that is in a morgue. And that would be good for you. That would be better. Maybe, perhaps, that would be better. The rabbi looked out. He said, sometimes you're dealt certain cards, and you know what? Maybe your mother was Jezebel. You have a 2. It's a 2. Your mother was Jezebel. Your father was a blind half-wit. And you got a 3. It's a 2 or 3. Maybe your uncle. On your mother's side, who knows? Maybe he was a drug dealer. Now you have a 1. It's an ace. Ace could go either way. If he's a drug dealer that dies and he goes to prison, he is raped anally in prison, and he has to pay big fines, and he has no good life, and he finally dies young, he's a 1. If he reforms and he uses some of his money that he hid in the Caymans, and he gets you some good stock market options, and then he becomes a 11 because it's an ace. It's an ace. You count the ace. But if it's a queen, it's a good thing, but you don't get too many queens. But if you get a queen, or if you get a jack, you get a jack. So you get a jack. Hey, you go over to Jack. Hey, Jack. Maybe Jack is your uncle on your father's side. Jack. Hey, Jack. You go up to his apartment. You say, hey, Jack, what's going on? He said, I have to be up to work tomorrow. What do you want? Get away from me, you half-wit, you scoundrel. Move away. I know what you do. I've seen you going in and out of the parlors with the prostitutes and the heroin and the opium. I've seen you going to the parlors. And Jack would say, get the hell out of here. And the rabbi looked at the audience. He said, Jack would say, everybody, get the hell out of here. And the rabbi would look. He would say, hey. So Jack said, get out. And then, the rabbit said, hey, if you were the man or you're the rabbit, you couldn't be the dog, but you could be the man or the rabbit. You'd say, hey, Uncle Jack, why? I want to pay a visit. I want to have some good camaraderie. Because when you saw out your cards, you saw a 1, a 2, a 3. Maybe you have a week 8, and you got a jack over here. So you follow the jack. You learn from the jack. Everybody, when you're born, everybody's parents and everybody's family, the half-wits, the morons, the fuckheads, the screw jobs, everybody. Everybody's got the same thing going on. Nobody's any different. The rabbit, he looked at the audience. He said, no one's different. Everybody's got the same thing going on. So, if you have a bunch of jack-alfs and screwheads and fuckwads and dipshits and morons and cane holes and jibber-jabbers, you have a few fucking jibber-jabbers in the woodpile. Maybe up in the woodpile there's a few fucking jibber-jabbers, maybe. Yeah, so you ever come to you follow the Jack. You go to Jack's house. You go to Jack. Jack, what are you doing? He says, I'm going to pack some fucking trucks from McLean Trucking. What the fuck? I got to be up at 4:30 in the morning to be to work at 6. Go fuck yourself. Then you go, hey, that's the guy I want to follow. That's the one. That's the one. My heroin addict or femoral or amphetamine family and my friends and my everybody. Jack is to get to McLean Trucking to pack some fucking trucks. He's making some good fucking money over here. Jack is rocking. Jack is earning. Jack is self-sufficient. Jack is a true American. I'm following Jack. So I have a lot of things going on everywhere. And the rabbi looked at the audience and said, maybe you have been dealt a shitty hand, but there's always a card you could play. You could go after the 8. You'd be better off at the 8 if there's anything less. There's 5 cards or less. Maybe you bet the straight or inside straight. Who knows? You have the draw, you could have an inside straight situation. But if you don't, then you follow the best card you got. It could be a 10, it could be a jack, it could be an 8, it could be a 9. You might have to follow a 9, but you follow fucking 9 to a swamp before you go to a 1 or a 2 or 3. No, you stay away from these cards. You pay the better card. You go with the better card. Everybody has an example. And that's what the rabbit finally looked at the audience. He said, everybody has a good example. The rabbit looked out. He said, everybody, you better believe you have a good example. Everybody, every single person, every single time is somebody in the deck that you're the hand that you were dealt from the deck. You are dealt a hand of cards, and you have to figure out, hey, what you playing over here, big boy? The rabbit looked at the audience. He said, what are you playing, big boy? And the audience looked back. They said, look like you're playing a 9. And the rabbit, he looked out at the audience and said, tonight I'm playing a 9 high. Tonight, I play 9 high. Yeah, I play 9 high tonight. Yeah, you think I'm afraid to play 9 high? I play 9 high tonight. Yeah, what do you got? Rabbit, my friend, what do you got? Yeah, I got a 9 high. You stayed in with a 9 high. You stayed in oh shit. There's people over here with like queens and aces. You got a 9 high. What are you going to back the 9 high up with? The rabbit, he said, nobody. I'll back it up. I'll back up the 9 high. Don't worry about it. The rabbit, he looked at everybody, he said, hey, I'll back up the 9 high. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. The rabbit, he looked at it. I was like, man, it was just some weirdo over there with a switchblade. He thought he saw this glinting of a switchblade. The rabbit said, don't worry about it. You and me, don't worry. I got the 9 high. The rabbit looked, he said, there, don't worry. You with me. I got the 9 high. Don't worry. Come on, we're going. We're going. I got the password. I got the 9 high. So when they say, what is it? Say 9 high. Don't worry. You and me.